Alrighty folks, welcome back. I think I've got a pretty cool video I'm going to do today. This is a stock truck intake manifold and I'm going to shave it. I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube. After people cut it off, they use basically a soldering iron to fill in the holes. I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm just going to glass it, so it'll be a multitude stronger that way anyway. I'm not really sure why more people don't just do it that way. It's going to be a heck of a lot faster. So I'm going to videotape it and we'll see how it goes. Worst case scenario, I found a guy on Facebook, definitely hooked me up. Throttle control module, intake, throttle body, and another pedal. Alright, so I got the intake strapped to the table so it don't bounce around as much. I'm going to use a Sawzall with a wood blade, but I just recently found this on Amazon, and I was using this little thing, and every time I needed a blade, it's kind of hard to open, and I had to take them all out and sort through them. This deal is on Amazon. I wish I had this a long time ago. It has little clear things that fold up, so even if you turn it upside down, nothing falls out, and you can organize your stuff. So I'll put one of these in the link below. Check it out. It's pretty cool. Alrighty, so we're gonna have a little lesson on fiberglass work. You have two components to a fiberglass system. You have the resin, which are these items, and you have the mat. Now, there's different types of mat. What most people have probably seen before is this stuff, which you see in a small package at the automotive parts store or at marine stores, and this is called CSM. This is chop strand mat, and this is not for structural applications. Structural applications require a woven mat, which, yeah, you can see this is a woven mat. Now, most of the time when you are doing fiberglass work, you use chop strand mat, because this is more for cosmetics, because as the name sounds, the strands are chopped up and laid randomly in this mat. So this gives you a little bit of strength, but nothing like the cross thread. For certain applications, there's also combination mats. This particular one is called 1708. What that nomenclature means is it has 17-ounce cross-threaded mat on one side and then 8-ounce chop on the other side. The resin by itself has no strength to it and is extremely brittle, so you never want to put excess amount of resin in any application, and if you do, you want to mix silica thickener in it. This is the hardener for this particular brand. It is MEKP, and all these are done in ratios. West System has a pump ratio system. It's a 1-to-1 ratio system, so you depress the pump one full time for each, and it gives you the perfect ratio for most temperatures. That is very handy, just so you don't have to mix. But this system is $100, 100 plus, and this is a commercial. You have to have a commercial account in most places to buy this sort of resin. This is available to consumers, so naturally they mark it up. And this was probably about $65, so give or take. This silica mix is handy. You use this in a lot of applications in boats because you can thicken the resin and it gives it strength, and you can put it in corners. So without going into too much detail, I'll draw you a little something. So in stringers and transom work, a lot of the time you will have, say you have to replace some stringers in the bottom of a boat. Here's the bottom of the boat. The stringer, a lot of times used to be made out of wood. Nowadays they have composites, but if this is the bottom of the boat and this is your stringer, you don't want a 90-degree angle there, because when you go to lay the mat, if this is a wood stringer or if it's a composite stringer, usually what happens in hand-laid applications is you lay the mat over top of it like this, and you overlap onto the bottom of the hull. But that 90-degree angle is difficult for the mat to lay in and get good connection with. So what you do is you mix the silica and the resin, and you essentially you kind of round out that edge. So when you go to lay the mat down, it has a better connection. So that is the sort of thing that you use thickened resin for. But again, that's not really a structural entity, but it helps the mat layout. There are also various types of rollers that are handy. For something like this, you won't need silica or probably even a roller, but it does help. And what that does is the roller has grooves in it. When you lay out the mat, With the resin, you roll it, and what it does is get all the air bubbles out, and it makes sure your mat has good connection with whatever substrate you're applying it to. So that is the fiberglass lesson for the day. Make sure whatever system you buy, you pay close attention to the mix ratios and the temperatures, because if you mess that up, you can ruin whatever you're working on very quickly. Fiberglass is similar to filler or other two-part applications, but fiberglass usually has a very small working window depending on how you mix it. So just some things to keep in mind. And if you do use this method, I think you would be pretty safe in boosted applications compared to trying to do the plastic welding. My engine's all stock, so this is going to be significantly overkill. In fact, if I were to use 1708, this stuff is probably stronger than the plastic manifold material itself. So, and then on top of all this, you could still use kitty hair or short strand Bondo, but short strand Bondo is very similar to this. It gives you some strength, but actually chop strand mat might even be stronger than short strand Bondo because it doesn't have nearly the amount of strands in it that chop strand does. So anyway, this is the best way to do it that I know of. I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube, but nobody has done this, so I figured I'd this out there for people to have another option, because personally I would be concerned with the plastic welding. I mean, you're not going to get that weld is not going to be very strong. So yeah, if you want to do it this way, this is probably the best way to do it that I've seen, and probably your safest bet. And if I was going to even consider a high performance application like running boost like a lot of y'all do, and I don't know much about that, but there's no way I would do anything less than what I'm doing here. One thing I did forget to mention is that whatever resin you buy, you need to make sure you find out if it has wax in it. And why that is important is if your resin has wax in it, when it's curing, the wax rises to the top. And if you are going to apply anything over that, you have to remove the wax. So what that means is you have to sand it thoroughly. Now, this is just like any other system where you have a chemical bond. This does not have wax in it, so what I'm able to do is lay a layer down, let it harden for 30 minutes or an hour, and I can apply another layer right over top of that without having to do any sanding. If you get a resin with wax in it, you cannot do that. You have to let it cure, then you have to sand it, and then you can do it again. So I have never worked with the wax resin just because it's a lot more it's a pain to deal with. So that's one very important thing you need to make sure of before you buy your resin. The way I usually use this hardener is I buy these needles off of Amazon, and it's real easy to shove this down in there and get the amount of milliliters or cc's or however the ratio calls. It's real easy to get the hardener out with something like this. So that's just the way I do it. Okay, so I've got the intake manifold cleaned real well, power washed it, sprayed it with degreaser a couple times, got it as clean as I'm gonna get it. I have rescuffed everything with 60 or 80 grit by hand. I did use the block partially, but you want to go back and get in all the little crevices where the grinder hit or the low spots and roughen it up. So now we're going to spray. This is a solvent cleaner, so we're just gonna, it's just acetone. So I'm gonna spray acetone on it, and we're gonna wipe it off, make sure it's clean, let it dry. Then we're gonna tape it up, and then we're gonna pre-cut some glass mat.
Tack cloth. So we'll cut this out and have a template for all of our pieces so we don't have to do that every single time.
Alright, so I took a piece that I had cut off and did the float test, which supposedly if the plastic sinks you do not have to use an adhesion promoter like when you're going to paint it. Since there's a bit of a question and I've done a few test pieces and it stuck okay just with a light scuff, I could still rip it off. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the West Systems epoxy 105 and I think 206. Yeah, 206, which is their slow hardener, because that's all I have. I'm going to sand it again, but I'm going to go to 40 grit on it, clean it back up, wipe it back down with wax and grease, and then I'm also going to go over it with the torch real quick, just a propane torch, right before I lay the resin on it. So we're gonna prep it one more time because it is a day later now I'm videotaping this. I'm gonna cut my mat out. We're gonna start with just chop strand, a layer of chop strand, and see how that sticks. I think I will have better adhesion with the chop strand first.
Okay, so I got this mess all taped up. The can calls for 72 degrees, 10 to 15 hours cure to solid. So it is probably about 11 o'clock in the morning. I'll come back out. I'll remove what I can as far as the tape over across it. We're going to give her a couple taps and see how she feels. And from there, we'll decide on if we want to do just a couple layers of CSM or if we want to do 1708. I'm on the fence right now. So now, one thing I will say about using the tape, it might be a little bit of a pain to get off and it might create some kind of divots. However, especially in these corners, the chop strand mat kept wanting to lift off, and this particular system has a lot longer working time than others because I'm using slow hardener, because that's all I have. So rather than risk not getting good connection between the plastic and the glass mat, I would rather just tape it and be done with it. We're going to peel off what we can peel off. The rest we'll just sand and we'll go from there.
Unfortunately, I lost my video footage of laying the first layer, but I will record the next layer. My storage was just full. If you time this right, you can get the tape off pretty easily. So I'm going to do that now. So it seems to have really good bond. It's hardening up real nice. So I'll go ahead and remove the rest of the tape, and maybe even later tonight we'll be able to do something with it. But so I thought I was overkill taping it, and I wish I had taped it a little bit more because I still had a few runs seep through, so we'll have to clean those up towards the end, but anyway, this turned out pretty nice. I just finished untaping it, and everything looks pretty good. I think I got a good connection where I wanted it. I'm gonna clean this up some, trim around these little sections, and get it ready for the next layer. When I was talking about the white areas, which may or may not have been part of the video that got cut out, when you're laying out the mat, it's not as apparent, but you'll see lighter spots, and those are either holes underneath the mat or air pockets. So you want to make sure you work those out accordingly. In the next layer I do, I'll clean my phone out and make sure it doesn't cut the video off and show you how I do it. So now we're ready for the second layer. One thing I want to make note of, you see all those little white dots? You need to make sure you blow out as much of this as you can. You're not going to be able to get all of it, but you want to try and get as much of that out as you can before you proceed on. Alrighty, so I've got the first layer of chopped strand cleaned up really well. The video is already at about 23 minutes, so I'm gonna split it here. This will be part one. Part two will be next. I'm gonna go ahead and upload this to clear my phone off because it's full, and hopefully this time you'll be able to watch how I lay out the mat, wet it, and apply it, and all that good stuff. So appreciate everybody who's watching. Please like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.